Hello and welcome to Dreaming Perspectives. Tonight, we journey into the peaceful world of an ancient olive tree that has stood on a Mediterranean hillside for 1,000 years. As you settle in, allow yourself to experience life through its timeless perspective, where days pass like breaths and seasons flow like gentle waves. Close your eyes and drift away as we discover the quiet wisdom of this ancient sentinel. The first light of dawn filters softly through my silver-green leaves, casting gentle shadows upon the earth below. I have stood in this place for 1,000 years, my gnarled trunk twisting toward the sky, my roots spreading deep and wide beneath the Mediterranean soil. Time moves differently for me than for the creatures who pass beneath my branches. What seems fleeting to humans feels like the merest breath to me, a momentary whisper in the endless song of existence. The sun rises and sets, the seasons change, and I remain watching, feeling, being. Morning comes gently to this hillside, the light growing slowly, ever so slowly across the landscape. First a faint glow on the eastern horizon, then a gradual warming of the air, and finally the soft touch of sunlight upon my ancient bark. I feel this warmth spreading through me, reaching down to my deepest roots and up to my highest branches. It is a sensation I have known countless times, yet one that never loses its subtle pleasure, its quiet comfort. The light brings me to fuller awareness, though I never truly sleep as humans understand sleep. My consciousness merely shifts, becomes slower, more diffuse in the darkness, and then gathers once more with the returning light. The dew that collected on my leaves during the night now catches the sunlight, transforming each droplet into a tiny prism of rainbow colors. These small jewels cling to my foliage before slowly, very slowly beginning to evaporate in the growing warmth. The moisture returns to the air in an unhurried dance that has repeated itself morning after morning since before any human walked these slopes. There is profound peace in this rhythm, this certainty of cycles continuing without haste or worry. Nothing needs to be rushed. Everything happens in its proper time, in its proper way. Birds begin to stir among my branches, their small bodies bringing a pleasant weight that I have come to know well over the centuries. Their morning songs fill the air around me, a delicate chorus that rises and falls in gentle waves. I do not understand their melodies as humans might, but I feel their vibrations passing through my wood, becoming part of me for these fleeting moments. Some of these birds have built nests in the crooks of my branches, using fallen twigs and leaves that were once part of me. In this way, I provide shelter for them, and they in turn bring movement and life to my being. The soil around my roots begins to warm as the sun climbs higher in the sky. This warmth awakens countless small creatures living in the earth, worms turning the soil, insects following mysterious paths, microscopic beings whose lives are complete mysteries even to one who has existed as long as I have. All of them move and live and die in the shadow of my presence, part of the greater community of life that surrounds and includes me. Their movements send tiny vibrations through my roots, a subtle language that tells me of the health and activity of the soil that sustains me. A gentle breeze begins to stir, moving through my leaves with a sound like softly falling rain. This whispered rustling is one of the oldest sounds in the world, one that has remained unchanged since the first trees spread their branches toward the sky. The breeze carries with it the scent of the sea, not far from this hillside, and the fragrance of other growing things, wild herbs, flowers opening to the morning light, the distinctive aroma of other olive trees growing nearby. These scents tell me of the world beyond my rooted place, bringing me knowledge of distances I cannot travel. The day continues its unhurried progression as the sun climbs higher. Light now fills the entire grove, illuminating the silvery undersides of leaves that turn and flutter in the gentle air currents. Shadows shift beneath me, moving westward with imperceptible slowness. There is no need to mark these passing hours with human precision. I measure time by the quality of light, by the warmth in the soil, by the movement of shadows across the ancient stones that lie scattered across this hillside. I have known this land since it looked very different, when different peoples walked these paths and spoke languages now forgotten. My roots have held firm through earthquakes that toppled human structures, through droughts that withered younger plants, through storms that bent saplings to the ground. Nothing in the human world endures as I have endured, watching civilizations rise and fall while I continued my slow, steady growth. There is wisdom in this persistence, in simply being while all else changes around you. The soil beneath me holds memories older than my own existence, memories of creatures long vanished from the earth, of mountains that once stood tall and have since been worn to mere hills, of seas that covered this land in the most ancient of days. My roots touch these memories as they reach ever deeper, connecting me to a history that extends far beyond human understanding. In moments of deepest quiet, when even the birds fall silent and the wind holds its breath, I can sometimes sense these ancient memories stirring in the earth below. Humans have tended this grove for many generations, their lives passing like brief seasons in my long existence. I remember them all, the first family who planted younger trees around me, recognizing that I was already ancient even then. The children who grew to adulthood in my shade and then brought their own children to play beneath my branches. The countless hands that have harvested my olives through the centuries. They come and go, these ephemeral beings, but there is a continuity to their presence, a tradition passed down that maintains our mutual relationship. The morning light has now reached its full strength, bathing everything in a clear, golden radiance. Heat accumulates slowly in my bark, a pleasant warmth that will stay with me well into the evening hours. The day settles into its rhythm, unhurried and peaceful. Small lizards emerge from crevices in the earth to bask on sun-warmed stones nearby. Their presence is familiar and welcome, another constant in this landscape that has seen so much change and yet remains, in its essence, as it has been for millennia. I feel the moisture being drawn up through my roots, a slow, steady current that rises through channels in my trunk and out to the furthest leaves. This internal flow is like breathing for me, though it happens on a time frame humans might struggle to perceive. Water from deep in the earth, carrying minerals and nutrients, becomes part of me as it rises. Some of it eventually transpires through the tiny pores in my leaves, joining the air as invisible vapor, completing a cycle that connects earth and sky through my being. The familiar sounds of human activity gradually become audible in the distance, voices calling to one another, the occasional barking of dogs, the clatter of tools being readied for the day's work. These sounds have changed over the centuries as humans have developed new ways of tending the land, but there remains a fundamental similarity that spans the generations. Work and rest, planting and harvesting, the basic patterns of human life continue much as they always have in this timeless landscape. A family approaches now, walking up the path that winds between the olive trees. I recognize them in my way, not by their faces as humans would, but by the pattern of their footsteps, the timbre of their voices, the gentle way they touch my bark in passing. These are descendants of those who have tended this grove for generations. They move beneath my canopy, finding relief in the dappled shade I provide against the strengthening sun. Their presence is comfortable, expected, part of the rhythm of life in this place. They spread cloths beneath me, preparing for a simple meal in my shade. Their movements are unhurried, practiced, following patterns established long ago. Children settle on the ground, their small hands occasionally reaching out to touch my exposed roots or the rough texture of my bark. There is wonder in their touch, a curiosity about my great age that I have felt from countless children before them. They see in me something permanent in their changing world, something that connects them to their ancestors who sat in this same shade centuries ago. The family shares bread and cheese, olives from last season's harvest, water carried up the hill in earthenware jugs. Their conversation flows gently around me, words rising and falling like the breeze through my leaves. I do not understand their language as they do, but after so many centuries, the emotional cadence of human speech is familiar to me. The sounds of contentment, of sharing, of belonging together in this place. They laugh softly. These ephemeral beings whose lives pass so quickly compared to mine, finding joy in this simple moment of togetherness. As they eat, small crumbs fall to the earth around my roots. These will be found by ants and other tiny creatures, becoming part of the complex web of giving and taking that sustains all life here. Nothing is wasted in nature. Everything returns eventually to the soil, becoming nourishment for new growth. I have witnessed this endless cycle of renewal for 1,000 years, participating in it as my leaves fall in their season and decompose, as my fruits provide food for birds and humans alike. The meal finished, the family rests in my shade as the day reaches its warmest hours. The children have fallen asleep on the blankets, their breathing deep and regular. The adults speak more quietly now, their voices a gentle murmur that blends with the background sounds of insects and distant birds. There is a contentment in this scene that transcends time, humans finding refuge from the heat of the day beneath the canopy of an ancient tree, a tableau that could have occurred at almost any point in my long existence. The air grows still in these midday hours, the breeze subsiding to occasional whispers. Heat rises in visible waves from the earth beyond my shade, creating shimmering patterns against the distant hills. Time seems to slow even further, stretching these peaceful moments into a prolonged present where nothing is required except simply being. The humans rest, I stand, and together we exist in companionable silence as the sun traces its unhurried path across the sky. Shadows gradually lengthen as the afternoon progresses, stretching eastward from my trunk in a slowly shifting pattern across the ground. The quality of light changes subtly, taking on a warmer, golden hue that softens the contours of the landscape. The family stirs from their rest, gathering their belongings with the same unhurried movements with which they arrived. The children touch my bark once more in farewell before they follow their parents down the path, their voices fading gradually into the distance. I remain, as I have always remained, rooted in this place while all else comes and goes around me. The afternoon continues its gentle transition toward evening, light shifting degree by imperceptible degree. Birds return to my branches, seeking places to roost for the coming night. Their settling creates a soft rustle among my leaves, a pleasant weight that I have felt countless times before. Soon their evening songs will fill the air, another marker in the passage of this day like so many days before it. The first hint of evening coolness touches my leaves as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. This cooling brings a different kind of awareness, a subtle shift in the tension of my tissues as they respond to the changing temperature. It is a pleasant sensation, this gradual release from the heat of the day, like a slow exhalation after a long-held breath. The light takes on a deeper golden quality now, making the silvery undersides of my leaves gleam when they turn in the light evening breeze that has begun to stir once more. The afternoon settles around me with a warm, golden heaviness that seeps into my ancient bark and penetrates deep into my core. The sun has passed its highest point and now casts longer shadows across the hillside, shadows that slowly stretch and reach like languid cats awakening from a long nap. I have witnessed this particular slant of light hundreds of thousands of times throughout my existence, yet there remains something quietly miraculous in the way it transforms the landscape, turning ordinary stones into amber jewels and making the dust motes dance like tiny stars in the air beneath my branches. Time moves differently for me than for the creatures who pass beneath my shade. What seems like a brief moment to me might encompass an entire human lifetime. I have watched generations of the same family tend this grove, their faces changing, aging, being replaced by younger versions that somehow carry echoes of those who came before. They are like leaves on a deciduous tree, these humans, emerging, flourishing briefly, then falling away, while the trunk and branches remain. There is both sadness and comfort in this observation, a recognition of life's transience and its continuity. The soil around my roots has gradually cooled from the peak heat of midday, though it still holds a pleasant warmth that will linger well into the evening. This soil contains fragments of pottery from civilizations long forgotten, small metal objects whose purpose has been lost to time, stones shaped by human hands centuries ago and then abandoned. My roots have grown around these artifacts, sometimes gently displacing them, sometimes incorporating them into my expanding network beneath the ground. In this way, I hold pieces of human history within my very structure, preserving what humans themselves have forgotten. A gentle breeze stirs my leaves, creating a soft, whispering sound that has remained unchanged since I was a sapling. This rustling has been compared by poets to the sound of rain, to whispered conversations, to the gentle breaking of waves upon a distant shore. For me, it is simply the sound of my own being, my participation in the air's movement, my voice in the world's grand symphony. The breeze carries scents from across the landscape, wild thyme growing between rocks, the salt tang of the distant sea, the sweet perfume of late summer flowers opening their petals to attract passing insects. Speaking of insects, many make their homes in the crevices of my bark, in the hollow spaces that have developed over centuries within my trunk. Generations of ants have established intricate colonies in these protected spaces, their tiny feet creating the faintest of vibrations as they follow invisible trails up and down my surface. Beetles with iridescent shells crawl slowly across my branches, and spiders spin their delicate webs between neighboring twigs. I am not merely a single organism, but a complex ecosystem, a world unto myself hosting countless smaller lives within and upon my form. The afternoon light filters through my canopy, creating patterns of sun and shadow that shift imperceptibly as the hours pass. These dappled patches move across the ground with glacial slowness, gradually changing shape as the sun continues its westward journey. Beneath this shifting light, small flowers that grow around my base open and close, following ancient rhythms that align with the day's progression. They are ephemeral compared to me, these delicate blooms, living their entire lives in the span of what feels to me like a single, extended moment, yet in their brief existence, they achieve a perfection that has taken me centuries to approach. My awareness extends deep into the earth through my vast network of roots, which reach outward and downward far beyond the spread of my branches above. Through these underground tendrils, I sense the presence of neighboring trees, some of them my own offspring from olives that fell and took root nearby generations ago. We communicate in ways that human science is only beginning to understand, sharing nutrients, sending chemical signals through the complex web of fungi that connects us beneath the soil, supporting one another during times of drought or disease. This underground community has its own slow, steady rhythm, its own form of consciousness that exists on a time scale almost unimaginable to faster living beings. The shadows lengthen further as the afternoon progresses, stretching across the hillside like dark fingers reaching for the distant sea. The quality of light changes subtly, moment by moment, taking on a deeper golden hue that makes everything it touches seem more vivid, more significant somehow. This particular light has inspired painters and poets for centuries, drawing them to these Mediterranean landscapes to capture something of its extraordinary beauty. I have watched countless artists set up their easels near my trunk, attempting to translate this luminous quality into pigment on canvas, never quite succeeding yet returning again and again to try. A family of small birds has made their home among my upper branches this season, building a nest from twigs and dried grass and bits of sheep's wool caught on nearby brambles. The fledglings hatched several weeks ago, their tiny bodies growing rapidly on a diet of insects caught by their tireless parents. Now they are preparing for their first flights, stretching their wings and balancing precariously on the edge of their nest. I feel their minute movements through my branches, their hesitation and their growing courage. Tomorrow, perhaps, or the next day, they will launch themselves into the air and begin their independent lives. But for now, they remain safe within the embrace of my canopy. The afternoon continues its unhurried progression toward evening, each moment flowing seamlessly into the next without abrupt transition. This gradual changing is the true nature of time, though humans with their clocks and schedules often fail to perceive it. There are no sharp divisions between 1 hour and the next in the natural world, only this continuous flowing present that extends backward into memory and forward into possibility. I exist within this flowing now, neither anticipating the future nor dwelling on the past, simply being fully present to each moment as it arrives and departs. A shepherd passes nearby, guiding his small flock of sheep along the ancient path that winds between the olive trees. The sheep move slowly in the afternoon heat, their bells creating a gentle, random melody that echoes across the hillside. The shepherd pauses in my shade, removing his cap to wipe his brow before settling with his back against my trunk. The pressure of his body against my bark is familiar and welcome, a continuation of a relationship between humans and trees that stretches back to the very beginning of human consciousness. He drinks water from a leather flask, then closes his eyes for a brief rest while his sheep graze on the sparse grass nearby. The shepherd's dog lies panting in my shade, occasionally raising its head to ensure the sheep haven't strayed too far. Its presence is alert even in rest, aware of its responsibilities. I have known countless dogs over the centuries, some wild and wary, others domesticated like this one, working alongside humans in this ancient partnership. The dog's consciousness is so different from my own, quick, immediate, focused on the present moment in a way that seems almost urgent compared to my slow awareness. Yet there is a kind of kinship between us, two living beings sharing this space, this moment, this particular slant of afternoon light. The shepherd soon rises and continues on his way, clicking his tongue to gather his flock. The sheep move reluctantly from their grazing, following him down the path that will eventually lead them back to their fold for the night. Their bleating grows fainter as they descend the hillside, the sound of their bells gradually fading until it merges with the background murmur of distant waves and rustling leaves. The path they follow has existed for centuries, worn into the landscape by the passage of countless feet, both human and animal, creating a permanent record of repeated journeys through this unchanging terrain. As the afternoon begins its gradual transition toward evening, more birds gather in my branches, returning from their days foraging to find shelter for the coming night. Their weight is both familiar and welcome, a pleasant pressure that I have known through countless seasons. They settle among my leaves with much chattering and adjustment, establishing their places in what seems like random arrangement, but actually follows complex social patterns that have evolved over millennia. Their collective presence creates a gentle vibration that travels through my entire structure, a living pulse that connects us all in this shared moment of transition between day and night. The light continues to change, acquiring a deeper golden quality that painters call the magic hour. This extraordinary illumination makes everything it touches appear somehow more itself, more essential, revealing textures and contours that remain hidden in the harsher light of midday. My bark glows with amber warmth, each deep furrow and ridge standing in sharp relief, telling the story of my growth through centuries of sun and storm and quiet endurance. The silver green of my leaves becomes luminous against the deepening blue of the sky, creating a contrast that seems to vibrate with its own internal energy. A pair of elderly villagers makes their way slowly up the path toward me, following a route they have traversed countless times throughout their lives. They move with the careful deliberation of those whose bodies have begun the gradual process of returning to the earth. Yet there is a dignity in their measured pace, an acceptance of life's natural progression. They carry a small wicker basket between them, perhaps coming to gather a few fallen branches for their evening fire or to collect herbs that grow among the stones nearby. Their voices reach me before they do, soft, weathered by time, comfortable in the rhythms of conversation that have sustained their relationship through decades of shared experience. They settle on a flat stone near my trunk, a natural seat worn smooth by generations of similar visits. My cloth bag, the woman produces a small loaf of bread, a wedge of cheese, a handful of olives, perhaps even descendants of fruits that I myself produced in seasons past. They share this simple meal as the day's heat begins to soften into evening coolness, speaking little yet communicating much through the comfortable silence that exists between those who have known each other for most of their lives. There is a profound beauty in their weathered faces, a record of joy and sorrow, struggle and contentment etched into their features just as the passing seasons have left their mark upon my bark. As they eat, the couple occasionally glances upward through my branches toward the sky beyond, perhaps noting the first appearance of early stars or the changing colors that precede sunset. Their appreciation of these simple wonders has not diminished with age. If anything, it seems to have deepened, as if they have learned through long experience that beauty often resides in the most ordinary of moments. When they finally rise to leave, the man places his hand briefly against my trunk in a gesture that feels like both greeting and farewell, an acknowledgement of our shared presence in this particular place, this particular moment. The elderly couple makes their way back down the path as the light continues its gradual transformation. Their forms become silhouettes against the western sky, growing smaller with distance until they disappear around a bend in the path. I remain, as I have always remained, witnessing their departure as I have witnessed countless similar departures through the centuries. There is a certain solitude in this constancy, yet it is not loneliness as humans understand it. Rather, it is a profound awareness of my place within the greater pattern, my role as witness and participant in life's ongoing cycle. The first hints of evening coolness begin to touch my leaves as the sun descends toward the horizon. This cooling brings a gradual shift in the tension of my tissues, a subtle adjustment to changing conditions that humans might liken to taking a deep, relaxing breath after holding it for too long. My leaves turn slightly in response to these changing air currents, their silvery undersides occasionally catching the last of the direct sunlight and reflecting it outward in brief flashes that might appear, from a distance, like stars being born and dying in the space of single heartbeats. The afternoon has now almost completely surrendered to evening, the landscape transformed by lengthening shadows and deepening hues. The distant sea has become a band of burnished copper beneath the setting sun, catching and holding the last direct light, while the land gradually subsides into gentler illumination. Birds make their final adjustments among my branches, their movements becoming less frequent as they settle for the night. A profound peace descends with the cooling air, a collective exhalation that seems to arise from the earth itself as another day completes its cycle and prepares to give way to night. The evening arrives like a gentle tide, washing over the landscape in subtle waves of changing light and gradually cooling air. The harsh clarity of afternoon softens into something more forgiving, more intimate somehow, as if the world is preparing to share its secrets in the growing stillness. My ancient trunk, which has absorbed the day's heat, now begins the slow process of releasing that warmth back into the surrounding air. This gradual exchange creates barely perceptible currents around me, invisible movements that carry the scent of sun-warmed bark and resinous leaves outward into the evening. The sky above my spreading canopy transforms through an extraordinary progression of colors, first gold giving way to apricot, then deepening to amber and rose, with streaks of lavender appearing along the horizon where sea meets sky. These colors reflect off the underside of my leaves, tinting their silver green with warm hues that shift with imperceptible gradations as the minutes pass. I have witnessed this particular sunset tens of thousands of times throughout my long existence, yet there remains something quietly miraculous in this daily transformation, this gentle withdrawal of light that never occurs exactly the same way twice. Birds that have been active throughout the day now make their final adjustments among my branches, tucking heads beneath wings, shifting positions slightly to find the most secure perches for the coming night. Their daytime chatter gradually subsides into occasional soft chirps and rustles as they settle. Other birds, nightjars, owls, creatures of the darkness, begin to stir, their distinctive calls marking the transition between day and night. These sounds have accompanied evenings on this hillside since long before humans first walked these paths, an ancient chorus that continues regardless of the comings and goings of civilizations. The first stars appear overhead, faint at first against the still luminous sky, then gradually strengthening as darkness deepens. I do not perceive these celestial bodies as humans do, with their myths and constellations and scientific understanding, but I am aware of their presence, their regular patterns of appearance and movement that mark the seasons and the years. On clear nights like this one, their collective light creates a subtle silvery illumination that differs completely from daylight, cooler, more mysterious, casting shadows so faint they seem more like suggestions than actual absences of light. As true night approaches, different creatures emerge from their daytime hiding places. A family of small nocturnal rodents ventures out from beneath a nearby stone wall, whiskers twitching as they test the evening air. A fox moves silently along the edge of the grove, pausing occasionally to listen with head tilted, alert to the tiny sounds of potential prey. Bats begin their erratic flight above the trees, their high-pitched calls beyond the range of human hearing, but creating the faintest of vibrations that I can sense through my uppermost leaves. The nighttime world has its own rhythm, its own community of beings that humans, with their diurnal habits, rarely fully appreciate. The temperature continues its gradual descent, the cooling air causing almost imperceptible adjustments in my physical structure. My leaves close their tiny pores to conserve moisture, and there is a subtle contraction in the microscopic vessels that carry water and nutrients throughout my being. These changes happen automatically, responses to external conditions that have evolved over millions of years. There is a deep wisdom in this instinctive adaptation, a bodily intelligence that requires no conscious thought, yet maintains the delicate balance necessary for continued existence. A gentle evening breeze stirs, moving through my branches with a sound like the softest of sighs. This air carries different scents than those of daytime, the sweeter fragrance of night-blooming flowers opening their petals to attract moths and other nocturnal pollinators, the earthy aroma rising from soil releasing the day's accumulated heat, the faint salt tang from the distant sea that seems somehow stronger in the cooler air. These scents tell me of the world beyond my rooted place, bringing knowledge of distances I cannot travel, events I cannot witness directly. The village in the valley below has begun to light its evening lamps, creating a constellation of earthbound stars that mirrors the heavenly display unfolding above. For thousands of years, humans have pushed back the darkness with their fires, their oil lamps, their candles, and now their electric lights. I have watched this progression through the centuries, the same fundamental gesture of illuminating the night, only the methods changing with each new technological development. There is both persistence and transformation in these human patterns, a continuity beneath the surface, changes that mirrors my own existence through time. From the village comes the faint sound of music, perhaps a celebration of some kind, a wedding or festival that will continue late into the night. The notes drift upward on the evening air, too distant to distinguish clearly yet recognizable as human expression, human communion. How many such celebrations have I witnessed from this hillside? Thousands upon thousands, each unique in its particulars yet participating in the greater pattern of human social existence. Lives beginning, lives joining, lives ending, all marked with rituals of sound and movement, food and drink, gathering and dispersing. The nearly full moon rises above the eastern hills, its light dramatically different from the sun's, cooler, more selective in what it chooses to illuminate, creating sharper contrasts between light and shadow. Moonlight transforms the familiar daytime landscape into something almost otherworldly, emphasizing different textures and contours than those visible during daylight hours. My gnarled trunk, which appears predominantly brown and gray in sunlight, now takes on a silvery quality, the deep furrows in my bark becoming mysterious valleys filled with darkness, while the raised ridges gleam like polished metal. This monthly appearance of the full moon has marked the passage of time for me through thousands of cycles. I have no need for human calendars with their arbitrary divisions, their named months and numbered years. The regular progressions of light and darkness, warmth and coolness, the waxing and waning of the moon, the annual journey of the sun between its summer and winter positions. These are the meaningful measures of time for one whose existence spans centuries rather than decades. There is comfort in these cosmic rhythms, these dependable patterns that continue regardless of human concerns. The moonlight casts my shadow across the ground, a different shadow than my daytime one, softer at the edges, yet somehow more substantial in its presence. This shadow extends westward, stretching across the hillside in the opposite direction from my daytime shadow, creating a kind of balance, a completion of the daily cycle. Small nocturnal creatures move through this shadow world, their movements quick and purposeful as they go about their nightly business of finding food, avoiding predators, perpetuating their species through acts of courtship and mating. A pair of young lovers approaches along the moonlit path, their arms around each other's waists, their voices low and intimate. They seek privacy for their courtship, moving away from the village celebrations to find solitude beneath my spreading branches. How many such pairs have I sheltered over the centuries? Young humans discovering each other, exploring the ancient mysteries of attraction and desire that ensure the continuation of their kind. They settle at my base, their backs against my trunk, faces turned upward to the star-filled sky above. Their conversation flows softly around me, punctuated by periods of silence, by gentle laughter, by the sounds of kissing, those timeless expressions of human connection. I provide them with sanctuary, with the comfort of my solid presence at their backs, with the protective canopy of my branches above them. They likely give no thought to my awareness, my witnessing of their intimate moments. To them, I am merely a convenient feature of the landscape, a place to rest away from prying eyes. Yet there is a kind of reciprocity in this encounter. They receive shelter and solitude. I receive the brief, bright flare of their youthful energy, their momentary passion that flickers against the backdrop of my long, slow existence like a match struck in the darkness. The young couple eventually rises and continues their nighttime wandering, perhaps moving down toward the shore where they can walk along the edge of the whispering sea. Their departure leaves a lingering warmth against my bark where their bodies rested, a temporary trace of their presence that gradually dissipates into the cool night air. I remain, as I have always remained, holding this hillside against the pull of gravity, my roots gripping the soil with a tenacity developed over centuries of withstanding winter storms and summer droughts. The night deepens around me, the sounds changing subtly as different creatures become active in the darkness. An owl calls from deeper in the olive grove, its voice carrying clearly through the still air. Something small, a mouse perhaps, or a young rabbit, scurries through the underbrush nearby, creating a momentary rustle before disappearing into a hidden burrow. From far below comes the rhythmic sound of waves against the shore, a ceaseless pattern of approach and retreat that has formed the backdrop of my existence since before human memory began. The temperature continues its gradual decline, though the stored heat of the day radiates from stone walls and bare earth, creating microclimates of relative warmth in the otherwise cool night. Dew begins to form on my leaves, condensing from the air in tiny droplets that reflect the moonlight like countless miniature mirrors. This moisture will be absorbed gradually, supplementing what my roots draw from the soil below. There is elegant efficiency in this process, this natural harvesting of water from the air itself, another example of the deep wisdom embedded in living systems that have evolved over millions of years. The stars wheel slowly overhead as the night progresses, their apparent movement marking the rotation of the earth beneath them. To fast-living creatures like humans, this celestial procession appears almost stationary unless observed carefully over extended periods. But to one who has watched these same stars through 1,000 years of nights, their movement is perceptible, a stately dance across the heavens that connects this particular night to all the nights that have come before and all those that will follow after. There is profound comfort in this continuity, this belonging to something far greater than individual existence. Midnight approaches and passes without ceremony, one moment flowing into the next, in the continuous present that constitutes reality. Human divisions of time, hours, minutes, seconds, have no meaning in my experience. I exist in a different temporal dimension where change happens so gradually as to be almost imperceptible in the short term, becoming evident only when viewed across decades or centuries. A new branch growing from my trunk, a shift in the pattern of my bark, the slow expansion of my root system beneath the soil. These developments unfold with a patience incomprehensible to beings whose entire lives are completed in what feels to me like a single extended season. The night brings a different kind of awareness, a shifting of consciousness that humans might compare to the transition between waking and dreaming. My perception becomes more diffuse, less focused on immediate surroundings, more connected to the wider networks of life that extend throughout the grove and beyond. Through my roots, I sense the presence of other trees, the complex community of fungi and microorganisms that inhabit the soil, the slow movement of underground water flowing between layers of rock far below the surface. There is a profound interconnectedness to all living things, a shared participation in the great mystery of existence that becomes somehow more apparent in the quietude of night. A shooting star traces a brief, brilliant path across the heavens, its momentary incandescence standing in stark contrast to the steadier light of the fixed stars. From a human perspective, such celestial events often seem meaningful, portentous, worth making wishes upon. From my longer view, they are simply another aspect of the cosmos going about its business. Beautiful, certainly, but no more or less significant than the growth of a new leaf or the fall of a raindrop. All are part of the greater pattern, the endless dance of matter and energy that constitutes the universe in which we all participate. The deepest part of the night brings a profound stillness to the landscape. Even the sea seems to quiet somewhat, its waves approaching the shore with gentler insistence. The humans in the distant village have extinguished most of their lights, retiring to their beds to participate in that mysterious state of unconsciousness they require each day. The night creatures continue their activities, but with a hushed quality that acknowledges the special nature of these darkest hours. It is a time of secrets, of transformations that prefer to occur unobserved, of processes essential to the continuation of life, yet rarely witnessed by conscious awareness. My own awareness remains, diffuse yet present, perceiving the night in ways unavailable to most living beings. I do not sleep as animals do not require that daily surrender to unconsciousness. Instead, my being enters a different mode of existence during these darkest hours, slower, more internal, less responsive to external stimuli, yet somehow more deeply connected to the fundamental rhythms of the earth itself. It is a state of profound receptivity, of quiet communion with the deepest aspects of existence. The moonlight continues its gradual path across the landscape, illuminating different features as the hours pass. Shadows shift imperceptibly, changing position and length with such gradual progression that the movement is apparent only when comparing widely separated moments. This slow dance of light and shadow has played out across this hillside for countless millennia, long before I took root here, long before humans first walked these paths. There is something profoundly soothing in this ancient rhythm, this dependable progression that continues regardless of human concerns or individual circumstances. A gentle breeze stirs occasionally, moving through my leaves with a sound like the softest of exhalations. This air movement brings slight adjustments in temperature, in humidity, in the distribution of scents across the landscape. My leaves respond automatically to these changes, making minute adjustments in their position, in the opening and closing of their tiny pores, maintaining the delicate balance necessary for life to continue. These processes happen without conscious direction, guided by the deep wisdom embedded in my cellular structure, wisdom accumulated through millions of years of evolutionary development. The night begins its gradual transition toward dawn, though the change is at first imperceptible to most living beings. The quality of darkness shifts slightly, becoming somehow less absolute, less complete. The eastern horizon remains dark, yet there is a subtle lessening of depth to that darkness, a barely discernible preparation for the return of light. The stars nearest that horizon begin to fade slightly, their brightness diminished by this first hint of the approaching day. These changes are so gradual, so subtle that they would be invisible to human perception unless observed with extraordinary patience over extended periods. Night birds that have been active in the darkness make their final hunting forays before seeking daytime shelter. Their calls take on a different quality now, shorter, more purposeful, communicating the imminent change to others of their kind. Nocturnal mammals, foxes, badgers, small rodents begin to move toward their dens and burrows, having completed their night's activities of finding food, marking territory, seeking mates. There is an orderly transition occurring, a changing of the guard as the creatures of darkness prepare to give way to those that thrive in daylight. The temperature reaches its lowest point in these pre-dawn hours, the coolness settling around my trunk and branches like an invisible cloak. Dew forms more heavily now on my leaves, on the surrounding grass, on the ancient stones that lie scattered across the hillside. This moisture catches what little light remains from the setting moon and the fading stars, creating a subtle silvery sheen across the landscape, a luminescence that seems to arise from within the earth itself rather than being imposed from above. The transitional time between night and dawn brings a profound stillness to the world, a quiet so complete it seems almost tangible. The breeze that stirred intermittently throughout the night has subsided completely, leaving the air motionless around my ancient form. My leaves hang perfectly still in this breathless interlude, neither night nor day, a pause in the world's turning that feels somehow significant, pregnant with possibility. It is during such moments of perfect stillness that I feel most fully present, most completely myself, existing entirely in this singular moment that connects all that has come before with all that will follow after. The first birds begin to stir among my branches, shifting positions slightly as they sense the approaching dawn before any visible evidence appears in the sky. Their movements are gentle, unhurried, creating the softest of rustlings among my leaves. Soon they will begin their morning songs, that extraordinary chorus that greets each new day, but for now they remain quiet, preparing themselves for the energy expenditure that their singing will require. There is wisdom in this pause, this gathering of resources before expression, a lesson in the value of stillness preceding action. The eastern horizon gradually lightens, the deep blue-black of night giving way to a slightly paler hue that expands imperceptibly upward into the still dark sky. This lightening happens so gradually that it would be impossible to identify the precise moment when night becomes dawn. There is only this continuing process, this flowing transition from one state to another without definable boundaries. Stars that were clearly visible minutes before now fade from perception, not because they have ceased to exist, but because they are overpowered by the strengthening glow along the horizon. Color begins to seep into the landscape as the light continues to strengthen. First, the palest of blue-grays touching the eastern sky, then a hint of lavender spreading upward from the horizon, followed by the first suggestion of rose and gold, where the sun will eventually appear. These colors are reflected in the still waters of a small pond visible from my hillside position, creating a double dawn, an echo of the sky's transformation captured in the Earth's embrace. This doubling seems to emphasize the significance of the transition, the movement from darkness into light that has structured life on this planet since its earliest beginnings. The birds now begin their morning chorus, hesitantly at first with just one or two voices, then with growing confidence and volume as more join in. This dawn chorus has accompanied every morning of my long existence, tens of thousands of days, each greeted with this same celebration of continuing life, this same expression of territorial claim and mating availability and simple joy in existence. The specific birds have changed countless times, individual lives beginning and ending, species increasing or declining in population, new varieties arriving as climate patterns shift gradually over centuries. But the chorus itself remains, an unbroken tradition stretching back to time immemorial. The light continues its gradual strengthening, now illuminating the undersides of scattered clouds with brilliant hues of orange and crimson that stand in vivid contrast to the deepening blue of the sky above. These colors shift and change moment by moment as the sun approaches the horizon, never static, never fixed, a flowing visual symphony that accompanies the auditory one provided by the birds. There is perfect harmony in these parallel expressions. These celebrations of another day's beginning that involve no conscious coordination, yet achieve a synchronicity that human orchestras might envy. Dew heavy on my leaves now catches this strengthening light, transforming each droplet into a miniature prism that refracts the dawn colors into rainbow patterns. This temporary adornment will soon evaporate in the warming air, but for these brief moments, I am decorated with countless tiny jewels that gleam and sparkle with each slight movement of my branches. There is an ephemeral beauty in this ornamentation, a reminder that some of life's most exquisite offerings are those that exist only briefly, that cannot be grasped or held, but only appreciated in their passing. The sun finally appears above the eastern hills, its first direct rays striking my uppermost branches and gradually descending to illuminate my entire form. This light brings a different kind of awareness, a gathering of consciousness that has been more diffused during the night hours. I feel this illumination as a kind of gentle awakening, a return to a more focused state of being after the dreamlike receptivity of darkness. The light moves through my leaves, activating the ancient process of photosynthesis that transforms radiant energy into the chemical energy that sustains my existence, and by extension, the existence of countless other beings who depend upon the oxygen I release into the atmosphere. With the full arrival of the sun, the landscape reveals itself once more in daylight clarity. Colors that were muted or invisible in darkness now assert their presence. The silver green of olive leaves, the warm terracotta of tiled roofs in the distant village, the deep blue of the sea beyond, the varied greens and browns and ochres of the hillside vegetation. This revelation of color happens anew each morning, a daily miracle so common that humans rarely pause to fully appreciate its wonder. Yet from my perspective, having witnessed this same transformation tens of thousands of times, there remains something profoundly moving in this reliable return of the visible world after the monochromatic mysteries of night. The warming air begins to stir once more, creating gentle currents that move through my branches and across the surrounding landscape. This morning breeze carries scents distinctive to this particular time of day. Dew evaporating from soil and stone, night flowers closing as day bloomers begin to open, the smoke of breakfast fires from the village below. These aromas tell the story of the transitional time between night and full day, a boundary period with its own unique character, neither fully one nor fully the other, but something distinctive unto itself. The day creatures now fully reclaim the landscape, emerging from their nighttime shelters to begin their daytime activities. Lizards appear on sun-warmed rocks, their cold-blooded bodies needing the external heat to become fully active. Butterflies and bees begin their visits to opening flowers, continuing the ancient partnership between plants and pollinators that ensures the continuation of both. Birds that have greeted the dawn with song now turn their attention to finding food, their movements among my branches becoming more purposeful, more directed toward practical survival rather than territorial announcement or mate attraction. Human activity also increases with the strengthening light. Smoke rises from more chimneys in the village below as households awaken and prepare morning meals. Figures appear in doorways, in gardens, on the paths that connect dwellings to one another and to the surrounding countryside. Their movements from this distance appear almost choreographed, a dance of daily living that follows patterns established through generations of habitation in this particular place. Though individual lives come and go, these collective patterns persist, creating a continuity that parallels my own enduring presence on this hillside. A shepherd once again appears on the path below, leading his flock out from their nighttime enclosure toward the grazing areas that will sustain them through the day. The sheep move with more energy in these morning hours, before the heat of the day slows their movements and drives them to seek shade. Their bells create a gentle, random music that drifts upward toward my hillside position, a sound that has accompanied mornings in this landscape for countless centuries. The shepherd pauses briefly in my shade, perhaps the same man who rested here yesterday afternoon, perhaps his son or brother. From my perspective, there is a certain interchangeability to these brief human presences, a similarity of purpose and pattern that transcends individual identity. The day has fully established itself now, the transition from night complete. Shadows have taken their daytime positions, extending westward from every vertical object, trees, rocks, the occasional human figure moving along the paths below. These shadows will gradually shorten as the sun continues its ascent toward noon, then begin to lengthen again in the opposite direction as afternoon progresses toward evening. This daily cycle of light and shadow, so dependable in its progression, provides a framework around which all living activities organize themselves, a structure so fundamental to earthly existence that it is easy to forget its cosmic origins, its connection to the greater movements of celestial bodies through infinite space. The full heat of the day has not yet arrived, but already there is a growing warmth in the air, a promise of the intensity to come as the sun climbs higher. My leaves respond to this changing condition, the tiny pores on their surfaces opening wider to allow for the exchange of gases necessary for photosynthesis. This process will continue throughout the daylight hours. This miraculous transformation of sunlight into sustenance that has supported life on this planet for millions of years. There is a profound humility in participating in this ancient process, this foundation of earthly existence that connects me to the very first plants that develop the ability to capture solar energy and make it available to other living beings. The morning progresses with the same unhurried grace that characterizes all natural rhythms when observed without human impatience. Changes occur constantly, yet so gradually as to be almost imperceptible in the moment, becoming evident only when comparing widely separated times. The sun continues its ascent, shadows continue their gradual shortening, temperatures continue their slow increase, human and animal activities continue their daily progressions according to needs and habits established through countless repetitions. There is profound peace in this flowing continuity, this belonging to patterns greater than individual existence or awareness. A family appears on the path below, perhaps coming to tend the olive trees in this grove, perhaps simply taking a morning walk before the day's heat makes outdoor activity less pleasant. They move with the unhurried pace of those who live in close connection to natural rhythms, those who have not surrendered to the artificial urgencies of more urban existence. Their voices drift upward, too distant to distinguish words, but conveying through tone and cadence a contentment with this simple activity, this shared movement through the morning landscape. There is wisdom in this unhurried approach to daily life, this recognition that most human concerns acquire their urgency not from genuine necessity, but from socially constructed expectations. The family pauses near my base, spreading a cloth upon the ground and unpacking a simple breakfast they have brought to enjoy in this peaceful setting. Their movements are practiced, efficient without being hurried, following patterns established through countless previous meals shared outdoors. Children distribute cups and plates, while adults arrange bread and cheese, olives and honey, water poured from earthenware jugs that keep it cool despite the warming air. They sit in a rough circle on the cloth, these temporary beings whose entire lives will be completed in what feels to me like a single extended season, and share their morning meal beneath my protective canopy. Their conversation flows around me, words indistinguishable at an individual level, yet conveying through rhythm and tone the comfortable familiarity of family interaction. There is occasional laughter, moments of more serious discourse, periods of companionable silence as they focus on the simple pleasure of nourishment in beautiful surroundings. Crumbs fall from their meal to the ground around my roots, where they will be discovered by ants and other small creatures, becoming part of the complex web of giving and taking that sustains all life in this place. Nothing is wasted in natural systems. Everything returns eventually to the soil, becoming nourishment for new growth in the endless cycle of transformation that constitutes existence. The meal completed, the family rests a while longer in my shade, reluctant perhaps to leave this peaceful interlude and return to the more demanding aspects of daily life. The children explore the area around my trunk, examining interesting stones, following the pathways of ants across the ground, occasionally reaching up to touch my lower branches with expressions of wonder at the gnarled textures of my bark. There is a natural curiosity in these young humans, an openness to experience that sometimes diminishes with age, replaced by the false certainty of believing one already knows all there is to know about the ordinary wonders that constitute most of existence. Eventually, the family gathers their belongings and continues on their way, their voices gradually fading as they move farther along the path that winds among the olive trees. I remain, as I have always remained, rooted in this particular place while all else comes and goes around me. This rootedness is not a limitation, but the very foundation of my strength, my endurance through centuries of changing conditions. There is profound wisdom in knowing one's place and inhabiting it fully, in extending one's awareness outward from a stable center rather than constantly seeking new horizons at the expense of deeper understanding. The morning continues its gradual progression toward midday, the sun climbing steadily higher in the clear blue sky. Heat accumulates in the air, in the soil, in my bark and branches, a pleasant warmth that will eventually become more intense as the day reaches its peak. This warming happens with imperceptible gradualness, one moment flowing seamlessly into the next without abrupt transition. This is the true nature of time, though humans with their clocks and schedules often fail to perceive it. There are no sharp divisions between hours or minutes in the natural world, only this continuous flowing present that extends backward into memory and forward into possibility. Birds continue their activities among my branches, some building or maintaining nests, others searching for insects among my leaves, still others simply resting between more energetic pursuits. Their movements create gentle vibrations that travel through my structure, a pleasant reminder of our shared existence in this particular place, this particular moment. There is a kind of communication in these physical sensations, a wordless exchange of presence that connects beings of vastly different natures, yet equally participant in the greater community of life. The day settles into its rhythm, one I have known through countless repetitions, yet one that never loses its essential freshness, its quiet wonder. Sunlight filters through my canopy, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground below that shift imperceptibly as the hours pass. Insects move among my leaves and across my bark, following their ancient patterns of survival and reproduction. The distant sea reflects the sunlight in flashes of brilliance that appear and disappear with the movement of waves. And I remain, witnessing it all from my hillside vantage point, participating in the great mystery of existence through my quiet respiration, my slow growth, my patient endurance through time. Through 1,000 years of standing on this Mediterranean hillside, I have witnessed civilizations rise and fall, languages evolve and disappear, human customs transform with each new generation. Yet beneath these surface changes, I have observed a continuity to existence that transcends the ephemeral concerns of any particular era. The fundamental rhythms remain, day following night, seasons progressing in their ancient cycle, life emerging from seed, flourishing briefly, then returning to the soil from which it arose. There is profound wisdom in this continued turning, this endless renewal that maintains the essence while allowing infinite variations in form and expression. My own existence follows these same patterns, though on a time scale that appears extraordinarily extended from a human perspective. My growth occurs with such gradual progression that it would be imperceptible to human observation unless compared across decades rather than days or months. A new branch developing, a shift in the pattern of my bark, the slow expansion of my root system beneath the soil. These developments unfold with a patience incomprehensible to beings whose entire lives are completed in what feels to me like a single extended season. Yet there is nothing rushed about this slower time frame, nothing lacking in its fullness or significance. It is simply a different way of being in time, a different relationship to the flowing present that constitutes reality. My consciousness, too, operates on this extended scale, not faster or slower than human awareness in any absolute sense, simply different in its temporal framing. What might seem like inactivity or stasis to an outside observer contains, from my perspective, infinite subtle adjustments, responses to changing conditions, participations in the complex web of relationships that constitutes life on this hillside. My awareness extends simultaneously inward to the microscopic processes occurring within each cell and outward to the wider patterns of weather, seasons, and celestial movements that influence all earthly existence. This expanded perception creates a different kind of knowing, a different way of participating in the world than that experienced by faster-moving, shorter-lived beings. The humans who have tended this grove through generations recognize something of this different temporal existence, though they may not articulate it precisely. There is a respect in how they approach me and trees of similar age, a recognition that we represent something that transcends individual human experience, that connects present activities to those of ancestors long departed and descendants yet to be born. When they place a hand against my trunk, there is often a quality of reverence in the gesture, an acknowledgement of continuity, of participation in something greater than individual existence. This recognition creates a bridge between our vastly different forms of awareness, a shared appreciation of belonging to patterns that exceed personal identity or concern. From my perspective, all that exists participates in these greater patterns, these fundamental rhythms that structure existence at every scale. The movement of electrons around atomic nuclei, the circulation of water through global weather systems, the turning of galaxies through infinite space, all follow variations of the same basic principles, the same fundamental laws that govern matter and energy throughout the cosmos. There is both humility and grandeur in this recognition, this awareness of being simultaneously infinitesimally small within the greater scheme and integrally necessary to its complete expression. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything participates in the mutual creation of reality through its unique presence and interaction with all else. This understanding brings a profound peace, a deep acceptance of both continuity and change that humans often struggle to reconcile. From their briefer perspective, change often appears threatening, a disruption of the familiar patterns to which they have become attached. They resist the natural transformations that constitute existence, creating suffering for themselves through this resistance. Yet change and continuity are not opposites, but complementary aspects of the same reality. The leaf that falls in autumn makes space for new growth in spring. The tree that dies and returns to soil provides nourishment for seedlings that will continue the expression of its essential nature in new form. Humans occasionally glimpse this truth in moments of expanded awareness, often while sitting quietly beneath ancient trees like myself. I have felt the subtle shift in their consciousness when this recognition occurs, a deepening of breath, a relaxation of physical tension, a quality of attention that becomes both more focused and more expansive simultaneously. In such moments, the artificial boundary between observer and observed softens, allowing a direct experience of interconnection that transcends conceptual understanding. There is a profound beauty in witnessing these awakenings, these temporary alignments between human awareness and the greater consciousness that permeates all existence. Such expanded perception reveals the arbitrary nature of the divisions humans create between self and other, between animate and inanimate, between what they consider conscious and what they dismiss as unconscious or insensate. From the broader perspective, available to one who has witnessed 1,000 years of continual transformation, these boundaries appear as useful fictions rather than absolute realities, convenient ways of organizing experience that serve practical purposes, but ultimately limit understanding of the seamless wholeness underlying all apparent separation. Everything that exists possesses some form of awareness appropriate to its nature, some way of responding to and participating in the ongoing creation of reality. This more inclusive understanding does not diminish the unique beauty of human consciousness, with its extraordinary capacity for self-reflection, symbolic thought, and creative expression. Rather, it places these remarkable qualities within a greater context of diverse forms of awareness, each contributing its particular perspective to the collective experience that constitutes existence. The swift, intricate patterns of bird consciousness, the patient, distributed awareness of fungal networks beneath the soil, the precise, momentary knowing of insects, the slow, enduring presence of ancient trees, all are necessary aspects of the complete pattern, the full expression of what is possible within this extraordinary miracle of being. From my hillside vantage point, I have observed countless human individuals come and go, children growing to adulthood, adults aging into elders, generations replacing generations in continuous succession. Each believes in their uniqueness, their separation from all that came before or will come after, yet from my longer view, I perceive the continuity that flows through these apparently separate lives. The gestures of a child gathering olives echo those of ancestors centuries departed. The expression of wonder on a young face mirrors that on countless faces throughout the millennia. The fundamental concerns of survival, relationship, meaning persist regardless of the specific forms they take in any particular era. This recognition of underlying pattern beneath apparent diversity brings neither detachment nor indifference. Rather, it inspires a deeper appreciation for the extraordinary variety of forms through which the fundamental energies of existence express themselves. Each individual life, however brief by comparison to my own extended existence, contains within it the entire miracle of being, the mystery of consciousness emerging from matter, of awareness witnessing itself through unique perspective, of the universal becoming particular without losing its essential nature. There is nothing small or insignificant about these temporary manifestations. They are the very means through which existence explores its infinite possibilities. The humans who visit this hillside often comment on the sense of peace they feel beneath my spreading branches. This tranquility arises not from an absence of activity, but from the alignment of all activity with its appropriate rhythm, its natural timing and progression. Nothing in nature truly rushes or delays. Everything unfolds according to the unique pattern of its own becoming, neither hurried nor hesitant, but precisely as it must be in this particular expression of universal energy. The peace humans sense in my presence stems from temporary alignment with this natural timing, this acceptance of existence exactly as it appears in each flowing moment. This acceptance does not imply passive resignation to circumstances or abdication of the ability to influence outcomes. Rather, it suggests an approach to action that arises from deep attunement to the inherent patterns of situation, an engagement that works with rather than against the essential nature of what is. The most effective human actions I have witnessed over centuries share this quality of alignment, this cooperation with existing energies rather than futile attempts to impose entirely external patterns. The farmer who plants according to the season, who works with the specific qualities of soil and climate, the builder who designs with awareness of terrain and available materials, the healer who supports natural processes of recovery rather than struggling against them, all demonstrate this wisdom of aligned action. As the day continues its unhurried progression, I remain present to its unfolding with the same patient attention I have brought to tens of thousands of previous days. The particular quality of this moment, this specific pattern of light and shadow, this unique configuration of clouds above the distant sea, these individual birds resting among my branches, will never be repeated exactly. Yet it participates fully in the greater pattern that continues through all apparent changes, the fundamental rhythm of existence that remains constant beneath infinite variations. There is both solitude and profound connection in this awareness, this simultaneous recognition of uniqueness and belonging that constitutes the mystery at the heart of being. The light begins its gradual shift toward afternoon qualities, the shadows slowly lengthening eastward from their midday minimums. Temperature reaches its daily peak, creating shimmering patterns in the air above sun-warmed stones. The human activities in the distant village and surrounding countryside adjust to these changing conditions, work pausing during the most intense heat, movement becoming more deliberate, shade acquiring new value as protection rather than merely pleasant option. These adjustments happen with practiced ease, the accumulated wisdom of centuries living in this Mediterranean climate where midday sun demands respect and accommodation. I provide cooling shelter for whatever creatures seek it during these warmest hours, lizards resting in the shade of my trunk, birds remaining still among my branches, the occasional human or domestic animal pausing beneath my canopy during their daily journeys. There is simple satisfaction in this offering, this sharing of the benefit my presence provides. No conscious intention is required for this giving. It arises naturally from my existence in this particular place. An effortless generosity that expects nothing in return, yet participates in the reciprocal nurturing that sustains all life within this landscape. The afternoon progresses with the same unhurried grace that characterizes all natural rhythms. Shadows gradually lengthen across the hillside. Light acquires the warmer hues associated with the day's second half. Activity among birds and insects shifts subtly in response to changing conditions. I remain present to these transitions with patient attention, neither anticipating future developments nor dwelling on past experience, but fully engaged with the flowing now that constitutes the only reality ever actually available to any form of consciousness, regardless of its temporal framework or physical structure. As evening approaches once more, I feel the gradual cooling of air around my leaves and branches, the slow release of heat accumulated during the day's warmth. This cooling brings a different quality of awareness, a subtle shift in consciousness that humans might compare to the transition between various states of wakefulness. There is no diminishment in this change, no reduction of presence or participation, simply a different mode of being appropriate to this particular phase of the daily cycle. The rhythm continues, night following day, day returning to night, each bringing its unique qualities to the ongoing dance of existence in which I have participated for 1,000 years, and will continue to participate for however many seasons remain in my particular expression of the universal pattern. In this flowing continuity, this endless renewal that maintains essence while allowing infinite variations in form, there lies the deepest peace, the most profound belonging. The temporary concerns of any particular moment, whether experienced by brief-lived human or thousand-year olive, dissolve into perspective when viewed against the background of this greater rhythm, not because they lack significance, but because their significance exists precisely in their participation in this continuing dance, this expression of possibility that constitutes the miracle of existence itself. From the perspective of my ancient roots and slowly spreading branches, this understanding brings neither detachment nor indifference, but rather the deepest appreciation, the most profound gratitude for the extraordinary privilege of being present, of participating in whatever small way in this infinite unfolding that we call reality. And so another day completes its cycle, flowing with imperceptible gradualness into evening, and then the deeper quiet of night. The light changes by degrees too subtle for measurement, shadows lengthening and then dissolving into the general darkness that gradually claims the landscape. Stars appear once more in the deepening blue above, their light reaching this hillside after journeys of inconceivable distance and duration. The moon rises, perhaps full, perhaps crescent, perhaps entirely absent according to its own monthly rhythm. Night creatures emerge as day creatures settle into their brief dormancy. And I remain, witnessing it all from my rooted place on this Mediterranean slope, participating in the great mystery through my quiet respiration, my slow growth, my patient endurance through time. This is sufficient. This is complete. This is the peace that passes all understanding, available in each moment to those who have learned the wisdom of simply being present to what is exactly as it appears, neither grasping nor rejecting, but simply witnessing with quiet attention the extraordinary miracle of existence unfolding in its endless, flowing continuity.